Hello, I'm Vicki Castori, editor of Packaging Technology Today magazine. Quality control has always been a critical issue for food manufacturers, but it's becoming more complicated with regionalized regulations and new requirements for food safety and labeling. For a thought leadership's perspective, we invited Rob Rogers to join us today. Rob is the advisor for food safety and regulation with Mettler-Toledo's product inspection division. Thank you for taking time to share your expertise, Rob.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to join.
So, Rob, to start, can you just please tell our viewers a little bit more about your role and a little bit about Mettler-Toledo product inspection division?
Sure. So I've been with the business for about 28 years now. I've held several positions within the business. My current role is Senior Advisor for Food Safety and Regulation, really acting as a consultant to both our direct clients as well as different regulators and standard owners around the capabilities around our technologies. As far as Mettler-Toledo goes, we're a very diverse organization with many different divisions, including a laboratory division, retail division, logistics divisions. I'm part of our product inspection divisions, which focuses around product inspection technologies like metal detection, X-ray inspection, vision inspection technologies, and inline check weighing systems.
Thank you so much for sharing that context with us. Mettler-Toledo does a lot. So, you've been helping Mettler-Toledo clients develop food safety programs for decades, obviously. What's changing now?
Well, I mean, there's a lot more focus on the food safety aspects today with different changes in the regulations. Obviously, the uptick in a lot of the third-party organizations, like through the GFSI organization. So there's certainly a lot of focus and intent around food safety. I believe we still have a lot of work to do, as we can see from the continuous recalls and activity we see from that side of the marketplace. So yeah, but definitely an increased focus around not only the technology and what they're doing as far as inspections, but also the activities around the technologies and the culture within the facilities.
Very interesting. And what are the most critical considerations for food manufacturers when they're developing or updating their food safety program?
Well, I think a lot of it is first off trying to understand who we're trying to comply to. You have the regulatory side, depending on where that product is going to be sold and consumed, meeting those legislative needs. You oftentimes have these third-party expectations through the GFSI organized groups. And then you might have, even on top of that, direct customer requirements that you're trying to meet. So first, trying to navigate that whole space is trying to figure out, well, who you're trying to comply to and what their expectations are. I think once you go from that, you can start to build your programs around to meet those expectations.
You know, one great resource that you pointed out to me is Mettler-Toledo's white paper for food manufacturers that was just released. Why do you advise your customers to take a holistic approach to quality control and compliance?
Well, again, I think that's it has to do a lot with all of the different things that customers are having to comply with, and many of our customers are having to meet all of those. They're having to meet that regulatory expectation. They're having to get certified to a GFSI standard for some expectation, either through their own business or through a customer's expectation. And of course, they're having to meet their customers' direct demands. So again, fortunately, through all that, there's a lot of commonality between the requirements, particularly around our technology and what we're trying to protect against, where non-conforming items around incorrect weights or items within a package or contaminated from foreign material. So really having an understanding, again, of who we're trying to meet and what their expectations are, building and developing programs to meet that expectation, and then understanding the true capabilities of the technologies or controls that we've deployed to help resolve some of these potential hazards.
Thank you. And the paper really is about doing due diligence. Can you briefly explain the principles of due diligence that are outlined in the white paper?
Yeah, so due diligence is really kind of the expectation that a business has done everything reasonably possible to prevent problems from occurring. So for us, from around foreign materials is a great example. Has that facility put preventive measures so they're not allowing materials into the facility? So there might be some limitations to having pens in the pockets and things like that, because that may fall in there and become contamination. There's going to be some processes around the continuing maintenance of the equipment to ensure that it's not breaking down and creating contamination in the first place. And really the kind of the last line of defense is the inspection devices to identify when something does get in there and to alert the user that, hey, something went wrong. Unfortunately, I think our systems are oftentimes looked at as an end of the line type inspection. I'm doing my due diligence because it's gone through the inspection at the end of the line. And certainly that's an important place to do that. But it may not be the best place to do that because there may be limitations due to the size of the inspection device needed at that point, or maybe packaging materials influencing the capabilities of the detection at that point. So we're really trying to look at that process in its entirety and apply due diligence so that we're doing every controllable measure to protect that product from foreign material, including inspections throughout the entire process. Maybe inspecting the raw material stage to understand where the contamination has come from in the first place, supplier A versus supplier B. Having protections throughout the process to protect against further damage to equipment if contamination were in the process. Maybe inspecting for large metal bolts in products before it goes to a grinding stage, where it could cause damage to that particular piece of equipment if there were a foreign material in there. And then, of course, that final inspection is important as well. There's obvious benefits to the business in doing inspections in that fashion as well, because we're removing those non-conforming items sooner in the process before we add further value into that product as a commodity, as a business. So due diligence really applies in all of that, not only in having a technology in place to protect those things, but again, the processes and the thought process around why it's located in a certain place versus another, and the activities that surround it, the validation, verification, and continuous monitoring activities that are often a requirement for the regulatory standards and the BRC and customers as well.
I mean, speaking of customers, you mentioned in the paper, there's really been a shift in the consumer mindset. So what are you speaking about when you mentioned the due diligence defense?
So really the due diligence defense is having the ability for the business or the manufacturer, if in the case of an event, to prove that they have done everything reasonably expected to prevent that issue from occurring in the first place. So not only having good thoughts and prerequisite programs in place to prevent the contamination, supplier agreements to ensure that those suppliers are producing good, clean, quality product and you're not bringing contaminated items into your facility. Again, those prerequisite programs around not allowing pens in the pocket, making people wear hairnets in the facility, preventing the contamination from entering the product in the first place. And being able to, again, have all those things in place to prove that you've done everything reasonably possible to prevent this. And yes, accidents happen. Something might happen. We have actions to take when that occurs. We can go through the notification processes. We can go through and initiate the recalls when we've understood the need for that sort of thing. But really, the due diligence aspect is ensuring that we've done everything to hopefully prevent these things from occurring in the first place, including having these sort of inspections and those processes built around those inspections.
It sounds like a very smart approach. And the reputational impact of product recalls can have a lasting impact. So, how does product inspection technology really protect people and brands?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, there's a couple of different ways that we do that. From a food safety perspective, we inspect for foreign material that's made it into the product that shouldn't be in there. Through our metal detection capabilities, inspecting for obviously metal, but also X-ray capabilities, inspecting for other non-conductive but dense contaminations, like stone, bone, glass, those sort of items. Um, the check weighing aspects have the capability of doing inline inspections to make sure that the product quantity levels are correct. So it's the right weight, it's got the right amount of items in there. X-ray inspection can do a little bit of that capability as well. But even aside from a complete package assessment, an X-ray can do a zoned compartment assessment for not only contamination, but also mass measurements, fill measurements, weights, things of that. Can do seal inspections to look for the integrity of the seal to make sure that there's no debris caught in the seal that could obviously relate to early spoilage of that food. The inline check weighing also meets regulatory standards, weights, and measures regulations. Obviously, there's some guidance and regulation around quantity declarations of the packages. And then we also have our vision inspection systems, which probably help to alleviate the largest reason for recalls, which has to do with incorrect labeling or incorrect packaging, to where there may be an undeclared allergen within the package that is not properly declared on the label. So really, product inspection solutions help to fulfill a lot of different quality and safety related items for a business that all will, if they had a negative impact, could negatively impact a brand for sure.
Yeah, very insightful. I mean, there's news this week about a retailer that's discovered rocks in their products. And so I get recall notices almost every day at the magazine. So this is great information for food manufacturers. In closing, what are three key takeaways you'd like to share with viewers?
Well, again, understand whose expectations you're trying to meet, and really understand that those expectations are just the minimum. The regulations, the standards, these are all minimum requirements for certification or acceptance. And as businesses, we should be trying to far surpass that capability and go well beyond that. As far as when it comes to protecting consumers, for sure. Understand that, again, inspections throughout the process are important, not only from a capability perspective, but also from a value add and an efficiencies perspective. You can imagine trying to do root cause analysis from an end of the line inspection, where we're now having to assess the entire process to figure out where things went wrong, as opposed to having segmented areas within the production to make that root cause analysis, again, much more easy and much more efficient to conduct. And again, just understand that, again, these are absolutely, when we look at standards and regulations, the absolute minimum. We can and should be doing better than that. Our devices are the last line of defense oftentimes. And certainly from our metal detector and X-ray inspection systems, I often say they are not contamination elimination devices. They're contamination notification devices. They've notified you when all the other processes and practices and procedures and protections you've had in place to prevent contamination have failed you and something ended up in the product. And so that action should require significant importance to understand how and where things went wrong to prevent it from happening again in the future. So I'll leave it at that.
All great advice, Rob. And I would say, like, working with a supplier and partner with 30 years of expertise and experience certainly is beneficial as well. So thank you so much for taking time to share your expertise with us today.
No problem. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. You can find this interview and a link to Mettler-Toledo's white paper on our website. Just go to packagingtechtoday.com and select Thought Leadership Videos from our page menu. Thank you for watching.